Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Interim Dean for the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work, Suzanne Wenzel.
Well, thank you, and thank you all for joining us today. Welcome. I am Suzanne Wenzel, Interim Dean of the USC Suzanne Dworak-Peck School of Social Work. We are so very grateful that President Carol Folt has given us this wonderful opportunity to learn how resiliency has shaped her career and how resiliency can be applied to both personal and professional progress. I would like to thank our school's advancement and marketing teams and the staff of the President's Office, the University Cultural Relations and University Events team for all of their events, all of their efforts to make this event possible. And for anyone in attendance today who is an LCSW or other licensed professional and is seeking CEU credit for this event, please be sure that you signed in and that you picked up your evaluation form. We are privileged today to have Dr. Amy Ross here with us, a member of the university's Board of Trustees and an alumna of the Keck School of Medicine at USC. Also, former trustee Carol Campbell Fox, an alumna of USC Rosier, is present with us today as well. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge an alumnus with us today who will be celebrating his 100th birthday in just a few weeks. He was an intelligence officer with the Tuskegee Airmen in World War II. Yes, he earned his BA from USC Dornsife in 1946, his MSW from the School of Social Work in 1953, Mr. Theodore Lumpkin, Jr. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you so much. Those who answer the call of social work do so because they have a sense of purpose, hope, and justice, and refuse to accept the notion that change is impossible. For nearly 100 years, social work has been a part of USC. And for decades, the university has educated dedicated, passionate, game-changing social workers who have gone on to make significant contributions to the profession. We are honored to have one of our most prominent alumnas here today. She is a social work pioneer, an honor that is bestowed by the National Association of Social Workers, which recognizes those who have had a profound effect on the betterment of society, the human condition, and the advancement of the profession. Her status as an internationally respected social work practitioner is the result of a 30-year career, during which she served as president of the National Association of Social Workers and the International Federation of Social Workers. She is passionate about creating a better society, about interdisciplinary collaboration, and about the education she received from USC, which made all of her accomplishments possible. She is also the woman whose name is now forever intertwined with social work at USC. It gives me great pleasure now to introduce to you Suzanne Dworak-Peck.
Thank you. I have the great pleasure today of introducing a highly accomplished woman with great expertise and passion for her role as president of USC. I've gotten to know Dr. Folt as a member of the Board of Trustees and also through my role on the Presidential Search Committee. In both, I learned firsthand about her abilities to face serious challenges and her experience handling very difficult and complex issues, the kind our university and our school are dealing with today. Most importantly, she demonstrates the integrity that we need in our top leader. In addition to these important qualities, what also impresses me is her deep commitment to the student experience. From the quality of the education students receive, to increasing access for qualified applicants, to augmenting scholarship opportunities. President Folt has a personal understanding of how higher education can transform and influence a student's life path. She worked her way through college and views her education as a privilege. President Folt is a leader who sets ambitious goals, values communication and collaboration, and believes that innovation is key to our progress. She's focused on the future of USC, and her exceptional leadership skills will help guide us to our full potential. On a personal note, I admire President Folt's dedication and advocacy on issues of equality and social justice. As a social work practitioner, having a president of USC who reflects my passions and those of our school, our students, our faculty, our alumni, and our partners is really very exciting. The fact she's here today to share her knowledge and experience as it relates to the practice of social work speaks volumes. I look forward to the opportunities for collaboration that this new era will bring for our school and our university. Dr. Carol Folt came to USC from a university with a strong school of social work, so she's no stranger to knowing who we are as social workers, what we do, and who we serve. I greatly appreciate President Folt's commitment to our school, her understanding of the significant and unique contributions that our School of Social Work, again, including our students, our faculty, and our alumni, makes, not only to USC, but to the surrounding communities, locally, nationally, and globally. Her support has been unwavering and always encouraging, particularly as we've searched for a new dean. I believe that she'll be an ally and a champion for our school as we transition into the next chapter in our 100-year history. I would like to thank all of you for being present today. This is a very special event that's brought us together for our school, for our profession, and for the university. We hope that you find this afternoon enjoyable and, above all, educational, and that you have something to take away with you. So now, please warmly welcome the 12th president of the University of Southern California, Dr. Carol L. Folt.
Woo! Thanks, everybody. Thank you. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Wow, a lot of people there. Thank you. Now you've gone a little bit into darkness again because of the bright lights.
Well, thank you so much again for your willingness to speak with us today. It means so very, very much. I have a number of questions for you on the theme of resiliency, and I think I would most like to know initially how personal resiliency has helped you as you've faced difficulties and challenges in your own career.
Thank you. I want to start by saying thank you to everybody. I've been really excited to be here. This is the very first lecture of any sort that I've given at USC. And in my heart, I'm a teacher and a researcher. So it means a lot to be here. And I just do really want to say this to all of you. You know, I think this is an amazing university, but I really do believe that all of you, the work that you do, exemplifies the best of who we are. And it really exemplifies the best of what we want to do for others. So it is really an honor to be here and a real pleasure. So thank you, and thanks for being here. And I love the fact that we're sort of starting off on resiliency.
Yes.
And I love it for two reasons. One is that as an ecologist, I actually studied resilient ecosystems and resiliency in ecosystems. And I find a lot that in the work I do, all the different aspects of my life play a really important part. So in ecology, you think of resiliency as the ability of a system or a species to bounce back. You know, you think of it as the capacity to recover. When there's been something that has driven a system down, how does it recover? For me, resiliency also has a piece of it that is, how do you sustain? You know, because to be resilient and to bounce back, it has an aspect of sustaining. But when it comes to people, then it has the personal qualities of toughness and grit. I think it often has with it the capacity to be empathetic, because that's how we are resilient. So when I think about all that, I mean, if I tried to think about how did I learn that in my life and how do I apply it, I've learned it through my own life's experiences and in part in the way I've studied it. And, and some of those experiences have to do with the same human experiences that we share. You know, the joys in our life, but the losses that we've had, the traumas that we or other people have faced. And I think it's in the learning of that, you develop a set of skills that you think helped you, and then you figure out how you can use them to nurture others. And I think we'll go into it in more detail, but a lot of it for me has been to draw on the community that I have. Yes. It's one of the skills I've learned, but one of the ones I try to listen to. I think it's also a learning that you have to retain your humanity, because the hardest thing to do, I think, is to try to be resilient and recover if you've lost the parts of you that are most important to you. So those are two examples, and we'll have a chance to talk about many more, but they're very much a part of your whole life.
Yes.
Comes to that resiliency that you teach and learn.
Well, I know that you've been praised by your colleagues for your ability to keep an optimistic viewpoint and a positive attitude, even in the face of very challenging times. And I wonder the extent to which you see these qualities as being a part of resiliency, or how you see that relationship.
Yes. So I feel like I'm extremely fortunate, you know, in some ways that are really have really helped me. But I have one of those wake up every morning sunny outlooks, and people come from that in so many different ways. We probably have some of our best friends are the Eeyores and the pessimists. I'm not going to be one of those. I'm going to be one of the annoying optimists. But that has actually helped me, of course. But it won't help me if it isn't real. So what's important to me is that when I have that optimism, it also has to be grounded in real things. So another piece of it that's been, I think, lucky or helpful is that I also am very much the scientist that I've always been trained. So when I think about that optimism, if I'm bringing that, it usually is grounded in problem solving, trying to dissect the issue, figure out ways to lean forward, because I find for me that when I'm facing things that are really difficult or troubling, the idea that I can push up my sleeves and there will be a path forward is the single biggest help I can feel when things seem like they may be overwhelmingly difficult. And I'm also lucky because I can sleep at night. I'm really serious. But so trying to keep yourself well, being able to have health or keep yourself healthy, I think is really important in being able to maintain that outlook or that positiveness, if that's part of your nature.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And that leads to a question about well-being. We know that the promotion and the maintenance of well-being is critical for all of us. It seems to be especially critical during hard times, during times of hardship. And I wonder how a focus on well-being during times of crisis factors into resiliency from your perspective.
Yeah. Well, when I think about the real issues that are plaguing us, that we're trying to really deal with, the inequities associated with health, with education, and how that plays into wellness, I think it's just so absolutely clear that health is terribly affected by trauma and the issues that lead to a loss of resiliency.
Yes.
So there's just no doubt in my mind that those are so tightly linked, and that's one of our biggest challenges in society, is to eliminate these gaps that are occurring for reasons that have so little to do with individuals but are based on the circumstances or the systematic systems that have reinforced that lack of wellness associated with people's communities or the situations they're in. You know, it's really hard, though, you know, when even as an administrator, Suzanne, I'm sure you've seen it, and I really do speak to the school because I know you've been through some really tough times. And so probably what you try to do is remind the people around you that they need to get rest, they need to have wellness, because we know that when we're exhausted, our decision-making isn't going to be very good.
That's correct.
I think when we get exhausted, our capacity to be empathetic gets tougher and tougher. But those are some of the two biggest tools that we have for solving our problems. And I think it also, when we're not taking attention to the wellness that we have ourselves or that our teams have, then I think we're really limiting our capacity to do the very work that we're all determined to do. Now, another flip side of that I want to say is that there are people whose whole life work is about being resilient and working to develop that in others. I can't imagine a school filled with people, with more people that have grit and determination than people in a social work school. I mean, that's what you are about. That's what you come from. So you probably rely on that in so much of what you do, and it helps you through the tough times in your own lives, but also in the lives of the communities or the world in which you're working. But nobody has an endless well of energy or goodwill or positive nature. We are absolutely capable of being tapped out.
Yes.
And so we need a community of people that we trust to tell us honestly sometimes when that's really happening to us.
Yes, indeed.
You know, and building that into our work worlds would be really wonderful. I don't think we're that great at that yet, but that would be something that would really make a difference.
Yes. Well, let's talk a bit more about communities. And certainly in social work, we often talk about resiliency as it relates to our clients, but also to communities, and particularly communities in need. And I'd love your perspective on how communities can contribute to fostering resiliency and sustaining it during very challenging times. And I think you've spoken a bit to that already, but if you could elaborate a bit more about the importance of communities and how they can foster resiliency.
Yeah, and I think this is a case where a lot of it has to do with the type of community that you're talking about. And I feel like I understand much better the personal communities we build, the communities in our universities. I have less immediate and direct understanding about how we build resiliency in deeply traumatized communities that have been going through things under enormous duress or that are constantly facing that, because I honestly live my life so much more in areas of of privilege, really. That's what a university is. But I think a lot of these things are still the same, in that if we can foster a community that has openness to the differences within the community, that I see that in every area I've been, is that when people feel that they're in the community but they're not really welcome, you are not going to have a community or a place that's going to be resilient. So it doesn't really matter what kind of community it is. I've seen that openness to difference in some of the poorest places I've been in the world, and I've seen that lack of it in some of the most elite and prestigious places in the world. So being open to difference and having people have a true welcome mat is real, and it's not easy, but it's something I think we struggle with, and I think we're struggling with it here and trying hard to do it. I think you can't have resiliency if you can't get fair laws. I mean, you do have to work on the human side, but we absolutely have to be adamant and unfailing and determination that we really do look to erase some of the systematic aspects of on the inequities. We have to have laws that are really put into place and that everyone is held accountable to. All things sound easy, very, very hard to really see. And I think we need to really expand our belief of what's fair. Because a lot of things are legal but completely unfair. So that's why those social justice people here and the policymakers here and the people that can think about it both in the short term and long term are going to be really helpful, because we can't have it just based on people's goodwill is not enough to basically get the resiliency that we need in the communities that we want. Yeah.
Let's talk a little more then about social justice. So we know that social justice is at the heart of social work, and it is at the heart of much of your work and advocacy. And I'd like to hear a little more about what the words social justice mean to you.
I love it. I love the concept of social justice, and I feel for me that concept has been expanding all the time. Just recently, I went and talked to the people at architecture, and they thought of themselves as social justice architects. And I have to tell you, that was like so, kind of got me, wow, I think I'm starting to get that. It's an application of the idea that we're trying to build equitable societies where we're able to do things in society, eliminate these gaps that have no reason to exist except through the victims of history and circumstance. And it's also about it's very aspirational term to me. It's not that we have it right now. It's not something you achieve and you know it's over. It's a never-ending process where you're trying to really reach to eliminate what, for me, the simpler way, the gaps in education, in wealth, in ability, in opportunity that are there, and they exist independent of the nature of the people, the work we do, and the way we dream and have aspirations. As a scientist, I worked on social justice issues and didn't even know it. I mean, it wasn't that I was calling that when I first started working, and that was when I was working on Superfund sites. I got involved in Superfund sites about 20 years ago. And I knew I wanted to do it because I had this strong feeling that my own research, which I loved but had been very much in pristine ecosystems, I started believing that I wanted more and more of my biology to go to the interface of where people were. But one of the very first things I learned about Superfund sites was that 1 in 4 children live within 1 mile of a leaking Superfund site. When I learned that, I think my life changed that very day, because I think it opened, even for me, a different way about thinking, really about the importance of my work. It wasn't just that I liked to do it anymore. It was almost that I had to do it. And I do think that social justice for people there's a lot of things we do that are very professional, and they work through systems and we do them in these ways, but some of it is very personal.
Yes, it is.
And it's that coming together between your personal and the professional way we do it that I think for many people is what gives it the mission, the grand mission, the purpose.
Yes.
So for me, it was that realizing that as a scientist, I actually could maybe do something with that horrible statistic, but maybe even more than that, I better do something. I had to try to do something.
Yes.
So it means all that
Yes.
and more.
Another aspect of coming together, you are a strong proponent of interdisciplinary collaboration. And getting back to the theme of resiliency, have you found this interdisciplinary collaboration to be an effective tool in building organizational resilience?
Oh, there I have absolutely no doubt. I'm not sure about everything in my life, but I am sure about that one. And I have so many great examples of it. And, because to me that interdisciplinary collaboration is a way of creating connection. And if you have a line that goes like this, it's not nearly as strong as a web. Spiders have it right. You build a web. It's a really tough thing built out of tiny little fibers. It can resist a lot. And when we do interdisciplinary connection, we are building these webs of connection that really help us do the work that we do better.
Yes.
But they also, in a university, they start building the connection that makes us a community of scholars and educators, as opposed to the people that we all are too, that we do our own work at times, but it gives us that collaboration. There's amazing data, especially in the early days in the sciences. Sciences became a team endeavor many, many years ago, way before people had really realized interdisciplinary was so important. Most scientists had already moved to the place that they knew that you had to do things with a lab. They knew that you did it with a team. When they gave the Nobel Prize to Al Gore and everyone that worked on the IPCC, 2,000 people shared the Nobel Prize. It was an enormous indication that things don't happen in silos. You need interdisciplinarity to truly solve any problem. But they didn't really talk about the fact that it also reinforces community, and it makes it a human place much more, the links between us. And probably more important for our students and even for us, it does the best job of increasing understanding and empathy. When you work with people, you have the best chance to actually get to know them, and you share a product of your work, which is such an important thing for the way you develop your friendships and your relationships, is that you've done something together. And I have seen this in so many cases, people that may come from very different backgrounds, very different beliefs, but you put them together on a problem that they believe in and they all want to share from a different angle. The end result is so much more than the specific nature of the problem that's solved. So when I came to USC, it seemed to me one of the most important things people told me, and this was in the search committee and everything, was that there was a lot of goodwill towards being interdisciplinary, but we had to do a lot more to break down the barriers. And that is actually high on my list. And because I think that we can be even better and stronger with every single one of those. We can start unlocking potential here. So I'm excited about it. But it's not the easiest thing, to do. But I don't think it's that hard. Yeah.
Certainly worthwhile.
It's
Definitely
certainly worthwhile.
Necessary. Yeah. So I want to ask you a question specifically because of your rich background as a scientist. And I'd like to know more about how research informs education at a top-tier university like USC. And that's even if a particular student might not be particularly interested in engaging in research.
Oh, wow. So much of what we do is based on the experiences that we've had ourselves or the ones that we've gotten to see. I'm only here because somebody got me excited in doing a research project, and I do a research project. When I went to university, I was a waitress, I'm working my way through school, but I took this amazing class, it's one of my very first classes, and they made us design a research project and critique a paper in science. Okay, you're going, really? Can someone who knows nothing critique a paper in science and design a research project? And it was such a great thing to sort of throw us into that, because what it started to teach all of us at a very young age is that our critical thinking skills are great. We may not know everything, but we know how to ask questions. We know how to dissect problems. We know how to recreate it. And as I went through my own development, I found it was the designing and the thinking about research is where I learned. I mean, we've all had that experience when we're reading things and they're boring as heck. And then we start getting involved on a project and we suddenly think, wow, I better go back and read that stuff that I used to think was boring because it's exactly what I need. So I think when we think about the best education, I don't have any doubt that it's learning by doing. Mm-hmm. So I think sometimes the word research may be an off-putter. For some people, I wish it would be the best word in the world, but some people might not like the word. I think it's problem solving. I think it's trying to dissect things. There's lots of different ways to cast it. I also think that we're moving to a world where we need to do more and more of it. Our rote teaching is probably becoming almost worthless. It's not nearly as good as problem solving. So the earlier we start getting students, undergraduates involved in what used to be the work only of graduate schools, I think we're doing something that's taking graduate education at its best, putting it into undergraduate education, and graduate education is expanding from problem-based in the world of the university to what all you do, which is problem-based in the world of the world. So they're each advancing in new ways, but they're all very deeply linked to aspects of research.
Yes.
So I just try to get them excited in something about that. Yeah.
So
most of them are just afraid of it, I think.
Yes.
I think that kind of sounds terrifying. And we just have to demystify it,
So you've said that your primary focus is on students and discovery. Could you elaborate a bit more on that?
I just believe in the mission. I believe in the mission of universities. I still think we have a chance. I don't think we're the only place that can be educational and that can do discovery and creativity. I don't believe that. I think you want every place to be able to do that, and there's lots of ways to do it. But we have this amazing moment when people come to a university completely open to the idea that they're there to learn. They have different reasons to do it, but they are opening their trust that somebody is here that has knowledge that they want to take advantage of. Now, I know some students come and they seem like they don't really want to be here, but most of them do. The hope that enters every classroom is enormous. So we have this opportunity when people are giving us their trust. Most of my life that's been with students at a young period in their life, but I love being in classrooms with learners that come from all ages and background. That's actually very exciting to me. But you have that, and so it's a real responsibility that we take them and help them find their way through that moment of hope and learn how to do it. So I get so much out of it. I learn more from my classes than I've ever taught them. I am absolutely sure. And so I think it's that for me has been part of it. And then nothing, and I love discovery. That moment of discovery is just so exciting. Go back to that class that told me I could actually think. That was pretty exciting. I was an art major before, and I think these actually go really well together because what I think I loved about being taking studio art classes was, you had an empty canvas every day.
Right.
And no one had ever put anything on that canvas before but you. So there was that moment when you got to try to put something you were wanting to express in an abstract form of something that mattered to you. You got to do that creativity. And again, I learned a lot more from watching everybody else painting in my class than I ever think I learned trying to do it myself. But that's wonderful. And then, you get to the point that we get to be around the greatest thinkers in the world working at the very edge of knowledge. And really, that is so incredibly exciting. So I just think they're very human, but they're very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for entertaining my questions. I think it's time to open this up to the audience for 10 to 15 minutes of Q&A
Sure.
with President Folt.
I love that.
So due to our limited time, we're only able to take a couple of questions. And these questions will be coming both from the live audience as well as from our live stream. We have 2 persons available in the aisles who will escort you to a microphone if you raise your hand. So that's Asha and Jane. If you have a question, please raise your hand.
Thank you.
Wonderful to hear all of the things that you've said that have resonated with social work. Diversity, equity, inclusiveness have become buzzwords in colleges now. And I wonder, in your experience, have you been able to increase diversity, equity, inclusiveness so that we may actually share some of your knowledge here at USC?
You know, I have certainly been at universities at a time when everything has changed, at least with respect to diversity, inclusivity, and gender. I was a graduate student. Getting my PhD, I was one of 15 women. One woman of 15 graduate students. And my entire world of science has changed enormously, not just in gender, but also it's becoming more diverse in other ways, still not hitting periods of equity. And in a lot of cases, I think I've been part of it. I've always found that, when you have a position that gives you any opportunity, you can take advantage of it. So whether I was running my class, or I'm doing my research laboratory, or when I became a dean, I tried always to be very mindful. So I always developed a very diverse team, because I think that was really important. And remember, I was usually the first one in the room that even looked like me. So that actually helped me a lot. I think I could help by both being a woman in that role, that helps other women see they could do it. I would tend to try to have a diverse team with me. So I think some of that is by the march of time, making sure that one of the things that was really important to me at Dartmouth when I became dean of faculty was to make sure that the distinguished professorships included a very equitable representation of the diversity that was our faculty as we aspired and moved forward. So I think I have a lot of examples of how in a leadership role you can do some things. I don't think it's that easy to have a simple set of things that tell us how to respect each other. So, as social workers and as people, we know that the best we can do is hold ourselves to that. I have to go to bed at night feeling that I was respectful. No matter, I have to make some decisions that are really hard, but I do actually ask myself that question at night. Can I sleep with the way I'm treating people? And to some extent, you try to do that as you're working with people, and you reach out to the youngest of your community, because if you help your students change that community, we're really changing it in the long run. I think it's that. I think it's also, what pictures do you put on the wall? I'm really mindful of that. Whose art do we show? What stories do we read? What books do we put out for the first year seminar? I could go on to many of these, but I think we have a chance in every one of those to really break down barriers of a sameness in the academy, at least, to be starting to be representative of the difference that is in our community. I think all of these are really important. And then when we see it isn't working, we have to find, again, back to these policies and processes, we have to hold departments accountable. We have to work with deans. I usually try to work from the collaboration first, but I don't think we can be hesitant to step in if it's not working. And so I think it's a mixture of
ensuring accountability
is really, but I think that ensuring accountability, even that, needs the community itself to be a part of that ensuring of accountability. Because we can do all the things we want, but if people keep coming back to me and said, that's all well and good, but in my department I feel like I can never speak, we haven't done it. So it is our big work. And I think that's what we have to do together. Hi.
Hello, I wanted to say my gratitude for your topic of discussion, which is helpful to all of us. Elina Zami from Keck School of Medicine. And considering that our students are having a very high level of stress, mental health issues. The issue of resiliency is really important for 40,000 students who are part of our community. And I'm thinking resilience is something that has been shown to be taught. It can be learned. And is this something that needs to be discipline-free and part of what we do as modeling for not just students, but it needs to be part of our culture of students, faculty, and staff, and perhaps integrated in every school, in every area, because I feel I can learn resiliency or teach resiliency in my statistics class. It does not need to be something that necessarily, I feel like it needs to be the fluoride in the water. It needs to be something that we all consume regardless of our rank and regardless of what is the discipline that we teach, we study, because we need the integrity, we need the ethics, we need the resiliency for all of us to thrive and be better. And how can we make it part of our existence in every class, in every school, in everything we do?
So 4 social work students came to see me just before this meeting, giving me some really good suggestions about how we could start thinking about things like training people for sexual assault and mental health. I mean, some of these things you could give a simple answer that says we could do a better job training people, giving them skills that could help them. I think the honest answer for me is that to say that you're going to put resiliency in every class in a structured way is difficult. 80,000 people are here. Everyone is a human being with their own different level of resiliency. And I've had faculty say to me, I did not train to teach people how to deal with all the things that I'm taught to deal with. So some of these things are going to take time. In a complex world like this, I do think we need to do a better job at the start. The university started a program called Thrive, and it's a course that they're piloting for the undergraduates that is really apparently outstanding. It is this. And it's being taught, at first you've got to teach it by the people who want to, like you, who say, I can do it, want to do it, or are willing to learn the skills to do it well. Because you know better than I that it's not that easy to know how to be sensitive to trauma. You have to be you do need to learn before you jump in. So I think we've got that great thing going, and they're starting to put they want to do the same thing for our staff. So there's a new pilot going there that will start working on thriving, because I like the term thrive. There's one part about resiliency that worries me sometimes, and you certainly weren't doing it, but I don't ever want to turn to people that have said they've gone through something and make them feel like because it's their job to be resilient to something that wasn't their. We've got 2 parts of it. I've got responsibility as well as personal traits to get it. So we want to continue to have that complex of that nuancing to be part of what we do. But those Thrive programs, I think, are great. And those are cross-disciplinary. They work across the institution. And you're absolutely right. They shouldn't start in your first term and be done. They need to be something that you layer in and is part of every part of the curriculum. You could maybe see it happening school by school. It may be that we just have to be better at having help. We are thinking about putting mental health professionals into schools to help with people. I mean, we're trying and examining and thinking about all these things, because I think the crisis that is on us is giving us in mental health and in other things. We're really terrified by drugs. The opioid problem is only coming to the West Coast now, so I can think about a lot of that. And resiliency training by itself isn't going to help us through that. It's going to have to be this mixture of personal trainings and responsibility that we take on as an institution. So, it's not like you gave me some easy things to deal with today, but they're the real one. They are real. I didn't expect you would beat around the bush. You deal with real things every day. And I think that's really important. Hello?
Hi. My name is Herman DeBose, class of 1975 from the School of Social Work, and I was really glad to see one of my former professors, Dr. Barbara Solomon. As she has been very resilient. My question centers on your comments about communities and about fair laws and that things are legal but they're not fair. One of the big issues that we have here in Southern California is homelessness. And one of the things that I always ask myself, if you look at the homeless population, it's about 57,000 to 60,000 in LA County. But one piece that we don't talk about is that African Americans make up less than 10% of the population of LA County. If you look at the homeless population, it's anywhere from 55 to 70% African American. And you talked about laws. And so I always ask myself, why is there this big difference if you're less than 10% of the county's population, but you're 60% of the homeless population? Goes back to your thing about being legal but not fair. The other piece that I think we're beginning to see in LA is gentrification. Mm-hmm. That if you look at Inglewood, for example, the Clippers are going to build the stadium, their prices are going up. When I came to LA in '73, you could buy property around here for dirt. But now that's not the case because housing is becoming expensive, for lack of a better word. So my question to you as an outsider bringing in new ideas, and when you said that one of the things, the Superfund site, 1 in 4 kids live closer, I'm going to make the assumption that those were generally poor kids or kids of color.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I want to ask you in your position is, how do you see the university and the influence that it has beginning to make statements about resolving collaboratively the homeless issue, and also this dichotomy that African Americans make up less than 10% of LA County, but 60% of the homeless population? I know the university can't resolve it by itself, but I think the university can have some big input. And the issue about social workers in schools, we have social workers in schools here in LA. Yeah, so.
No, I think what I said was that we might bring mental health.
Those social workers.
Yeah, here too, right here. And some of the people.
On campus here?
Exactly. Okay. I was talking about in our campus.
Okay.
I was mostly talking about here, and some of those people might be social workers that we're embedding into the different schools on campus. Yeah, mostly I was talking about, schools. I was thinking of the schools at USC.
Okay, I misunderstood.
So, this is really good, and I'll try to give a sort of my view on that right now. So clearly, one of the biggest, clear issues for this region is homelessness. When I came here, and what I actually believe is one of the greatest things of our future is to be the university of the urban future that is embedded in an urban society and is doing its best to really take the resources in intellectual capital, problem solving that we have, and be part of developing the real solutions for the future. Every university in America is talking about that now. But we're the one that can really do it. And the truth is we're already working in so many ways. I know more now about what our dentists are doing in treating in clinics. I know more about our whole street side medicine program. I could go, we're training a lot of the teachers. We're running five different schools. I could go on and say on a personal level, and even on a school-to-school level, we're fighting for better health. We're fighting to get rid of educational barriers. That NAI program is as good in the country I've ever seen. 100% success rate for the students in the NAI program, getting into college, getting financial aid. So we're doing all those pieces. What we haven't done yet is be part of the convening of the solutions amongst other cities with other universities. And I think that's where we can go. I do think we have to be a little careful in the issues that we choose to embrace because we've got so many. My own belief is that I have to at least start by finding out who is living on streets that are our own students. I have to start here. Food insecurity, housing insecurity, mental health, abandonment. So to some extent, you start where you have your most immediate authority and you start really getting working on that as best we can. We were talking about it even at the Dean's Retreat. We need to really think about that, and we need to draw on the skills of people here at Keck, at Dent, and all our places to try to do that and take care of it. I will tell you, the mayor, my first conversation with Mayor Garcetti was all about this. In his dream, he believes that the universities should help be the conveners of this. It just gets a little big and abstract when you start realizing all the policy issues, but I think that's where we need to think about it. I think we really need to bring people together, and it may begin with something as, I was not going to say simple, but what if we were the conveners of the five universities in this region and said, okay, people, let's get in a room, let's sit down and say, what are the solutions? We have an architecture school, social work. So we have so many schools, a law school, all these things. My goodness, we should be able to do something that helps, even though we can't manufacture housing or something. That's one piece of it. The second piece is to continue the work with the communities, but be mindful that our own ambitions do contribute to gentrification. At the same time, we also have a community that wants our help and some of the services we can do. So I don't think we can be afraid to have a dream, but I think we have to be extremely community-based in the way we try to bring those dreams to reality. And by the way, I'm learning this from all the people here. This isn't me making this up. This is because people are telling me that's how they feel. But we have an opportunity there, but we have an obligation. We have to understand that's what happens. Our being here just does that. But it does so many other good things, too. I don't think the communities don't want USC here. So we just have to figure out how to balance that. But thank you for asking about that. Hi.
Thank you, Dr. Folt. We actually have a question from our online live stream audience,
great.
and they'll read it from the pulpit.
Okay, super.
Jewel from Portland, Oregon, who's part of our virtual academic program in the MSW program, asks, how do you feel is the best way to connect with our community in a world that is so disconnected?
Yeah, that's so hard. I think the only way you really connect with people is if you are authentically showing up. I mean, so to some extent, the media, the way you do it is going to really vary, and that is part of the problem. But part of it is also trying to be real when you're doing it. What do people hate most from the university? Bureaucratic messages that sound like some committee wrote them. I'm sorry, I'm sure I've sent some of them too. Because it's so darn hard to communicate authentically about the things that are so meaningful. If I had a chance to be in a room with every single person all the time, I'd learn so much more. I think I'd be able to be so much more effective, but I don't have it. Yet all of us that sit in these positions need to constantly try to make sure that the things that we're saying are the things that we really mean, so that we can reestablish that trust. But we also have to try to find a way to embrace and enjoy all those different ways of communicating. So I have an Instagram account, I have a Twitter account, I have a million things like that. And we all do, and I think we have to be able to do that. I think my single thing that works best for me is be open to any question that anyone can ask. And I'm usually the last person to leave. They'll find a hard time getting me off here, even though I have another meeting, I'm sure, because I feel if people will give me the respect of asking me a question, the most important thing I can do is try to listen to the question and answer it. So our communication at this moment has to go through many different vehicles. It has to go through, it has to be present, it has to be rapid. We have all that things to do. But in the end, if it isn't authentic and it isn't really doing our best to be as transparent as we possibly can be, and transparency sometimes means saying very honestly, I'm sorry, I can't tell you that. That is a privacy issue, but at least you're explaining it. I think if we haven't got that right, we won't improve the communication. So the online person, I can't see you, but trying to give you that honest answer, I think that's a real challenge for us. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Folt. This will actually be our last question of the evening. Go ahead, Rory.
Thank you.
Hi, President Folt. Thank you so much again for taking the time to speak with us all today. I'm Rory OBrien. I'm a first-year PhD student. And as a new queer and non-binary student in a new institution, there's always times I have to rely upon my own reserves entering a new institution. So I appreciate this discussion, but as a social worker, when I'm relying on my own reserves, I think of systemic solutions and the reasons, the structures that produced discrimination I experience and how they can change. Earlier, I really appreciated your response specifically to the person from Keck School of Medicine. You spoke of a critique of resiliency as being somewhat based in a bootstraps ideology and of an emphasis on personal responsibility and its flip side of blame. I'm wondering if you might speak on the relationship or the contention between promoting resiliency and enacting structural change, and what that means for you as our president. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and welcome. Glad you're here. You know, they aren't oppositional. You know, it is important that we let students know that there are ways to cope with problems. There are ways to develop resiliency if resiliency is really defined, in my mind, as developing a sustainable life. You know, so I think I want everyone to have and get access to whatever it takes to get them to the point that they can get that just like a sustainable ecosystem. The ecosystem itself might not be able to be sustainable unless we add things to it. We have to do all those things together. And so I do think there are skills of teaching people how to listen, teaching people how to reach out. I think there are many skills with resiliency that we are and can teach and are obliged to teach. I do think this idea that there's blame, and I know no one here is doing that, but sometimes people do, that if you aren't resilient, it's something wrong with you. We have to be fighting that in every single moment that we talk about it. But as a leader of an institution, if I don't have good rules and processes, I cannot do it. So I don't think you can leave one as the thing you do and not do the other. So even coming here, we're trying to redo virtually everything about Title IX. We've got faculty governance processes that are trying to deal with some of these things. We're trying to figure out, you know, that whole thing about accountability. What the heck is it? And how do we make people feel that it's really happening? There isn't really a simple single process for it. So we did put in place, for the first time, a vice president for human relations. And if you haven't met Felicia Washington yet, you will meet her and you will love her. She is wonderful, but one of her main missions is to come here to work on those process parts, those trainings and those convenings that we can get, because the siloed nature of USC for so long has really allowed some of that to fall in the cracks. It might be good someplace and not others. People in one place might have different rules than people in others. And when you're large, it just doesn't work. I don't know how many of you have ever traveled through New Hampshire, but if you've ever seen houses in New Hampshire, where I lived for many years, they talk about the little house, big house. You know, you start with a little house, you add a wing, it goes to the barn. But as you add and grow, they built these strange houses that you couldn't come in the back door and get to the front. You know, they weren't connected anymore. So these processes that we need to put in place that can help people be welcome, have these things that our ideals have to have, both a human part, but they have to have a structural part that is really there to make them real. So we have many of those in some places. I mean, it's working beautifully well in some places, but I think that's one of the real pieces of what we need to do together. And when there's such an appetite, as I see at USC right now, I think you're going to be very happy about the Culture Commission in the extent to which they've begun. And I ask everybody here, show up for those workshops, put your voice in there, because that's another way that we're going to get your information back. You can be so helpful. The Board of Trustees took that same Culture Commission And I was so excited that everybody was doing that. So we have a chance to really get the voice. And that is not about saying everything's perfect. It's about talking about what do we value. And a lot of things we value, we think we do pretty well but could do better. And some of things are the ones that are missing. And some of them are directly what the last questioner asked me. How do we make people feel like they're a part of things? How do we become accountable? So that's my ask to you, is to show up for that and be a part of that, and help us interpret it as social workers, be a part of those opportunities. I also do say to you, stick with us. I know you've been through, as I said, a tough time, but, it's absolutely true that you're very valued. I think we're going to find ourselves, we depend on you, and we'll depend on you more, society does, so I appreciate the gumption and determination I know is on all of you, and you're caring for your students and your communities, which is your most important mission. Really appreciate that. And as I close and thank you, I actually wanted to share with you a quote, because I was thinking about where do I go in my lowest moments, and I didn't really talk about that, but I definitely have them, and I often go to people that I care about. I often turn to art or music, because sometimes that can really give me something. But words, poetry of language sometimes is something that gives me it gives me strength. It can become a touchstone. And someone that I really know and admire is a woman named Terry Tempest Williams. Some of you may know her, and if you haven't read her work, you should. She's an amazing person. Probably one of the first people to really bring the human narrative into the study of the environment. And one day we'll bring her here. You'll love her. But she has a quote that I was going to read to you, because I think it encapsulates a lot of what we might be talking about. She wrote a book about this, but in there she says, they were asking her, how do you deal with issues and pain? How do you find voice in a world where you feel voiceless? And she said, I pray to the birds because they remind me of what I love, not what I fear. And at the end of my prayers, they teach me to listen. I love that, because I think that's where we find our resiliency usually is finding it in the things that we love, not the things we fear, and in the listening to the people that we serve. So thank you. I really appreciate being able to be here with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all that you do.
Thank you so much, President Folt, for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you.
For our school, and for the members of the Trojan family gathered here today.
Thanks,
It
everybody.
was such a pleasure to
I'm
work
going to
with
stand
you.
for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.